I got home early on a Thursday. I just finished work sooner than expected after a client canceled a late call, and for once the universe decided not to spit directly in my coffee. I even made the rookie mistake of thinking, hey, maybe tonight can be nice. That should have been my first warning. I stopped on the way home, picked up a bottle of wine my wife liked. I also grabbed a small box of pastries from that bakery she loved, the place where everything looked delicate, overpriced, and emotionally unavailable. So there I was, walking up to my own front door like some loyal suburban golden retriever with a credit card. The first thing I noticed when I stepped inside was laughter. Female laughter. Walked into the living room and found my wife, Dana, sitting on the couch with her sister Chloe and two of their friends, Melissa and Brianna. There was wine on the coffee table, half-empty glasses, a bowl of crackers, some little cheese plate situation that looked like it had been assembled by someone who says charcuterie without embarrassment, and my laptop sitting open on the table. That caught my eye, not because I was hiding state secrets on it. My browser history was mostly work tabs, articles I pretended I would read later, and searches like, why does the dryer make a noise like a dying raccoon? Still, it was my laptop. Dana looked up first. For half a second, I saw it. Surprise. Real surprise. Not, oh hey, you're home surprise. More like, why are you here right now? Then it vanished under a smile. Oh, she said, lifting her glass. You're home early. No, I said, setting the wine and pastries on the counter. I'm actually a very convincing hallucination. Don't get up. Melissa laughed. Brianna smiled politely. Chloe looked me up and down the way a judge might inspect a defendant who showed up wearing the wrong tie. Dana stood and gave me a quick kiss that felt more procedural than affectionate, like signing for a package. We're just having a girls' night, she said. Clearly, I said. I can tell by the amount of judgment in the air. It's thicker than the cheese. Chloe smirked. Relax. We're not plotting your downfall. Then you ladies are wasting a beautiful evening. That got a real laugh out of Melissa. Even Dana smiled at that. She always liked it when I was funny in ways that made other people think I was easygoing. What she didn't like was when I used the same sense of humor like a knife instead of a party trick. I nodded toward the laptop. You using that? Dana waved a hand. Just for music and looking something up. Good, I said. Because if I find 23 new tabs open about signs you married the wrong person, I'm going to feel very personally attacked. Brianna snorted into her glass. Dana gave me that look wives perfect over time. Half affection, half warning. You're in a mood. I'm married. That's not a mood. That's a long-term condition. More laughter. Easy. Harmless. Domestic. The kind of scene that would look perfectly normal from outside the window. I said I'd stay out of their way and took my stuff down the hall toward my office. Technically, it was a home office. Realistically, it was the room where I paid bills, answered emails, and occasionally sat in silence. I closed the door most of the way, but not completely. Through the wall, I could still hear their voices, softened by distance but clear enough to follow the rhythm of the conversation. I put my keys down, loosened my tie, sat at the desk, and opened a spreadsheet from work. That lasted maybe 2 minutes. Then Chloe said, loudly enough to cut through the wall, "No, I'm serious. Let's do it properly." Someone laughed. Melissa said, "Oh my God, are we really doing this?" Dana answered, "Do what?" Chloe, in the tone of a woman who has never once improved a situation in her life, "Rate them." Silence for a beat. Then Brianna said, "That is so evil." "Exactly," Chloe replied. "That's why it'll be fun." I stopped touching the keyboard. There are certain tones people use that make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. A cop walking toward your car. A doctor starting a sentence with, "well." A woman with 2 glasses of wine saying, "Let's be honest for once." Dana laughed. Not nervous laughter. Not, "Oh, stop, you're terrible" laughter. Interested laughter. "What? Like actually score our husbands?" she said. "Yes," Chloe said. "But honestly, not fake nice wife honesty, real honesty." Melissa chimed in. "This sounds like something we should absolutely not do." Which means we're doing it, Chloe said. I leaned back slowly in my chair. Now, a better man might have put on headphones, minded his business, and preserved his peace. I am not a better man. I am, at my core, a curious man. Curiosity built civilization, destroyed empires, and made me once eat gas station sushi. It was now leading me toward a conversation I already knew I would regret hearing. Dana said, "Okay, fine. But if this gets out, I'm denying all of it." "Please," Chloe said. "This is a sacred female tribunal." "That sounds illegal," Brianna muttered. "You'll survive," Chloe said. "Open a spreadsheet." There was a pause, keyboard clicks, and just like that, apparently, my marriage was now being processed like quarterly sales data. Melissa asked, "What are the categories?" Chloe answered immediately, like she had either thought about this before or was naturally gifted at being a menace. Looks, charisma, ambition, money, confidence, masculine energy, potential. I blinked. Masculine energy. That one almost made me laugh out loud right there. Because nothing says healthy adult relationship like your wife and her wine committee ranking your masculine energy next to a bowl of imported olives. Brianna actually laughed at the same phrase. Masculine energy? What is this, a podcast for divorced life coaches? Chloe said, "You know exactly what I mean." Dana said, "Unfortunately, yes, I do." Something in the way she said it made my jaw tighten. Still joking, still light. But there was an edge in it, an eagerness. The keyboard clicked again. "Scale of 1 to 10? Melissa asked. "Obviously," Chloe said. "And comments if necessary." "Comments?" Brianna said. "Jesus. What? Nuance matters." Of course it did. Why simply insult your husband when you can annotate him? I should say this here. I was not some useless man wandering through life in socks and confusion. I worked hard. I handled our bills. I cooked more often than Dana did, mostly because she considered seasoning to be a personal attack on vegetables. I fixed things around the house. I stayed in shape. I wasn't some alpha wolf motivational speaker with a beard full of cigar smoke and bad opinions, but I was not exactly a cautionary tale either. And yet, sitting in the office and listening to 4 women build a husband scorecard like they were judging livestock at a county fair, I had a bad feeling that nuance was not going to save me. Chloe started with Melissa's husband. "Okay," she said. "Greg." Melissa groaned. "Oh God, fine." "Looks?" Melissa exhaled. "6." Chloe made a scandalized noise. "Only 6? He's handsome in a tired contractor kind of way," Melissa said. "But if he smiles too wide, he looks like he's about to sell me a used boat." Everybody laughed. "Charisma?" Chloe asked. 7. "Ambition?" 8, Melissa said. "Easy." "Confidence?" 7, but in an annoying way, like he walks into every room like he's here to fire somebody. Dana laughed. "That's still better than the men who walk into a room apologizing to furniture." That one landed harder than it should have. I went still. Not because it was a direct hit, not yet, but because I recognized the setup. That was the kind of line people throw when they already know where the rest of the conversation is headed. Brianna's husband went next. Then Chloe's ex, because apparently dead relationships can still compete. The whole thing had the tone of a late-night game show hosted by emotionally irresponsible women with good skincare. "My husband gets an 8 for ambition," Melissa said at one point. Dana replied, "At least he has ambition. Some men hit 35 and emotionally retire." Chloe nearly choked laughing. Later, when Brianna gave her husband a 7 for confidence, Dana said, "That's attractive though, even when it's a little irrational. At least it feels masculine." The word kept floating back into the room like perfume and poison. And the more they talked about the other men, the more animated Dana became. "That one has presence. This one at least knows how to make decisions. He's kind of arrogant, but honestly, it works for him. He looks like a man when he enters a room." That one sat in my chest like a nail. Because here's the funny part. You can be married to someone for years, sleep next to them, build routines with them, hear their work complaints, know how they like their coffee, know which side they turn to when they're stressed, and still have no idea how they describe you when you're not there. That's the romance they never put in greeting cards. Chloe finally said the words I had been waiting for and hoping not to hear. "Okay," she said. "Dana, your turn." The room changed, not dramatically. No spooky music, no lightning, just a slight shift in the air, the way people lean in before gossip turns into confession. Dana laughed, but softer this time. "Do we have to?" "Yes," Chloe said immediately. Melissa added, "You can't participate in everyone else's and then skip yours." Brianna, who at least had traces of a conscience, said, "Maybe don't." Chloe ignored her. "Come on, we're being honest." Dana was quiet for a second. Then I heard the clink of her glass on the table. "Fine," she said. That single word felt like someone opening a freezer door inside my ribs. I moved closer to the crack in the doorway. Chloe said, far too cheerfully, "Okay, looks." Dana let out a breath through her nose, thinking. 4. There was a beat. Then Melissa said, "Wow, we're starting strong." Dana laughed. "What?" "I'm being honest." I stared at the dark hallway wall. 4. Not exactly flattering, but numbers by themselves don't wound you. It's how casually they're delivered, like assigning a difficulty level to assembling a chair. "Charisma?" Chloe asked. 3, Dana said. This time Chloe actually laughed. Brianna murmured, "Dana." "What?" Dana said. "You said honest?" "Ambition?" Chloe pressed. 3, "Money?" 5, "I'm being generous." The room laughed, and that one almost impressed me. Not because it was clever, because it was efficient. One sentence, and suddenly every late night, every handled emergency, every quiet sacrifice, every practical thing I'd done to keep our life stable got translated into 5, generous, efficient cruelty, a domestic specialty. "Confidence?" Chloe asked. Dana did not even pause. 2. That was the first one that made me smile. Not from amusement, from clarity. Because if there is one thing I have learned about people, it is this. The moment someone confidently gives you a 2 in confidence, irony is no longer just a literary concept. Then Chloe asked, "Masculine energy?" Melissa burst out laughing before Dana even answered. Dana laughed too. 2. Potential? Chloe asked. Dana took a second for that one. I heard her swirl her wine. 3. Chloe made some dramatic clicking sound with her tongue, like a disappointed talent scout. I should have been furious right then. Maybe shout, maybe walk in, maybe slam the laptop shut and ask if they wanted to rate my blood pressure too. But I wasn't furious. Not yet. I was focused. Because humiliation is loud when it happens to weak men. When it happens to proud men, it gets very, very quiet. And then Melissa said, "He's not bad though. He's convenient," Chloe offered. Dana laughed. Then she said it. "He's good," she said. "Just, there's no spark." The room hummed in agreement. No spark. That beautiful little phrase women use when they want the moral elegance of disappointment without the ugliness of admitting contempt. No spark. Like I was a damp fireplace, a sedan, a tax return. Chloe said, "Safe option." Brianna muttered, "That's harsh." Chloe went on, "No, that's accurate." And then Melissa, God bless her wine-soaked honesty, added, "He does seem comfortable." Dana gave a small laugh. "Exactly," she said. "Comfortable." That word did more damage than the numbers, because comfortable is what you call shoes, a couch, a neighborhood restaurant, not the man you married. I stood there in silence, one hand on the doorknob, listening to my wife summarize me like a cardigan with a checking account. And the worst part? She sounded relieved, like she had finally found the language for something she'd already been feeling for years. And just when I thought the performance was over, Chloe clapped her hands lightly and said, "Wait, What's the total? Of course there was a total. Why humiliate someone qualitatively when you can quantify it and give it a leaderboard? Keyboard clicks again. Someone leaned closer. The tribunal reconvened. Okay, Chloe said. Let's see. Yeah. She let the silence hang, enjoying it. Lowest overall. Melissa made a half gasp, half laugh. Brianna didn't say anything. Dana exhaled through her nose like she'd expected it. Hey, she said, lifting her shoulders slightly. At least he's reliable. Chloe snorted. Reliable is what you say about Wi-Fi. Melissa added, or a dishwasher. They laughed. Dana didn't stop them. She actually smiled. Reliable is good, she said. And that was the moment I understood something important. Not about them, about us. They weren't being cruel on purpose. They weren't trying to hurt me. That would almost have been better, because deliberate cruelty can be confronted. This was casual, comfortable, natural. This was how she thought. This was how she talked about me when I wasn't in the room. And that meant the problem wasn't the wine, or Chloe, or a stupid game. The problem was that my wife saw me as safe furniture. The conversation drifted after that. They moved on to stories about vacations, work drama, someone's coworker who cried in a meeting. The energy shifted back to normal, like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't just rated me and filed me under adequate but uninspiring. Then I went back to my desk, sat down, and reopened the boring work spreadsheet I'd been pretending to care about earlier. Except now I wasn't looking at numbers. I was replaying the categories in my head. Looks, 4. Charisma, 3. Ambition, 3. Money, 5. Generous. Confidence, 2. Masculine energy, 2. Potential, 3. If you stack those numbers next to a broken appliance review, I wouldn't even argue. Strangely, I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. There's a moment in some arguments where people say things they don't mean. This wasn't that. There was no heat, no pressure, no fight. Just relaxed honesty. Which meant this wasn't something she said in anger. This was something she believed in comfort. That's always worse. Eventually, the evening wrapped up. I heard chairs scraping, goodbyes, that chorus of, "Text me when you get home," which always sounds like concern but mostly functions as social punctuation. The front door closed, then again, then silence. I waited another 30 seconds before stepping out of the office. Dana was in the kitchen, stacking glasses into the sink. She looked up and smiled like nothing unusual had happened. "You survived hiding in there?" she asked. "Barely," I said. "I considered calling for extraction." She laughed. "You could have joined us." I didn't want to interrupt the summit. "What summit?" "You know, strategic planning, global policy, cheese-based diplomacy." She shook her head and turned back to the sink. "You're weird tonight." "Long day." She wiped her hands and walked over, leaning lightly against the counter. "You okay?" I met her eyes. For a split second, I wondered if she suspected I'd heard something. There was nothing in her expression, just mild curiosity. "I'm fine," I said. "Just tired." She nodded, apparently satisfied. "I'm going to bed. Don't stay up too late." "Wouldn't dream of it." She came over, kissed me on the cheek, and headed down the hallway. That kiss felt exactly like the one earlier. Procedural, like we were both maintaining something neither of us had formally agreed to keep. I stood in the kitchen for a minute after she disappeared. The wine bottle I'd brought sat unopened on the counter. The pastries were still in the box, untouched. I opened it, took one, and ate it standing there. It tasted good, which felt mildly insulting. I cleaned up the rest of the glasses, turned off the lights, and went to bed later than usual. Dana was already asleep, turned away from me, breathing evenly. I lay there staring at the ceiling, not spiraling, not planning revenge, just rearranging things internally. It's funny how quickly perspective shifts. The same ceiling I'd looked at 1,000 times suddenly felt different, like I was lying in someone else's room. Eventually, I slept. The next morning, Dana left early for work. Quick coffee, quick goodbye, quick, See you tonight. Everything normal, efficient, comfortable. After the door closed, I stood in the living room for a moment. The laptop was still on the coffee table, closed. I walked over slowly, like it might explode. Again, not because I expected anything dramatic, but because I already knew what I was going to find. I opened it. The desktop was exactly how I'd left it. Same folders, same icons, same background photo from a vacation where we both looked happier than we probably were. I opened the recent files list. There it was. Husband rating XLSX, no subtlety, no irony, just a clean, efficient label. I clicked it. The spreadsheet opened instantly. 4 names across the top, rows for each category, numbers filled in, conditional formatting highlighting the totals. Someone had even color-coded the highest scores in green, because nothing says healthy marriage like Excel-based humiliation with visual aids. I scrolled down to my row. The numbers matched exactly what I'd heard. Looks, 4 charisma, 3 ambition, 3 money, 5 confidence, 2 masculine energy, 2 potential, 3 total, lowest. But there was also a column labeled Notes. I hovered for a second before reading it. Reliable, calm, good partner, but lacks drive. Low presence. Low presence. I actually laughed. Not loudly. Just a short, dry exhale. Low presence. I lived in the same house, paid the same bills, slept in the same bed, fixed the same leaking sink. But apparently, in the metaphysical sense, I was basically a ghost with a checking account. I took a screenshot, saved it. Then I printed the entire sheet. The printer whirred loudly in the quiet house, sounding almost theatrical. When the page slid out, I picked it up and looked at it again. Seeing it on paper made it more absurd, cleaner, official. I folded it once, carefully, and placed it inside a folder. Just organization. Because if I was going to respond, it wasn't going to be with yelling in a kitchen. It was going to be with decisions. I closed the laptop, put it back exactly where it had been, and went to get dressed. For the first time since the night before, I felt something close to calm. Not forgiveness, not anger, just direction. And that, ironically, probably would have scored at least a 7 in confidence. I didn't call a lawyer that same morning. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not the kind of man who hears one uncomfortable conversation and immediately hires 3 attorneys, sells the house, and buys a motorcycle. I prefer to let things settle, not because I'm indecisive, because I like my decisions calm and expensive. So I went to work, and yes, I actually worked. Emails, meetings, the usual corporate theater where everyone pretends urgency is the same thing as importance. But something had shifted, not in a dramatic cinematic way, more like the background noise had gone quiet. That evening, I came home at the usual time. Dana was already there, scrolling on her phone, one leg tucked under her, the universal pose of someone who lives comfortably in a space they assume is permanent. "Hey," she said, "how was your day?" "Educational," she smiled faintly. "That sounds ominous." "I learned that meetings multiply if you feed them." She laughed, casual, easy, the same tone as always. We had dinner, talked about work, talked about a show she wanted to watch. She mentioned Chloe briefly, something about meeting her for brunch on the weekend. I nodded. Neutral. No tension. If she felt anything was off, she didn't show it. That's the thing about slow fractures. They don't creak. They just separate. Later that night, she fell asleep again before I did. I stayed awake longer, not staring at the ceiling this time, but thinking through logistics. Where would I stay? How complicated would separation be? What did I actually want? Not revenge, not drama, just distance. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I stepped outside during a break, found a quiet bench, and dialed the number Mark had once given me after his own divorce. The lawyer's assistant answered, efficient and polite. Within 10 minutes, I had a consultation scheduled for the next afternoon. No thunder, no music, just a calendar entry. When I hung up, I felt oddly lighter, not happy, but aligned. Like my internal compass had finally stopped spinning. The consultation itself was almost disappointingly normal. The lawyer, a calm woman in her 40s, asked standard questions: length of marriage, shared assets, no children, joint accounts, house in both names, nothing dramatic. "Any specific incident prompting this?" she asked. I considered explaining. The spreadsheet, the ratings, the numbers. Instead, I said, "Loss of respect." She nodded like she'd heard that 1,000 times. "That's usually the beginning," she said. "We discussed options. Separation first, documentation. No need to escalate unless necessary. Keep communication calm. Avoid emotional confrontations. In other words, behave like an adult." I left her office with a thin folder and the strange sense that my life had just moved forward half a chapter without asking me. Over the next few days, I didn't change dramatically. I didn't start lifting weights at midnight or quoting philosophy at breakfast. I just simplified. I opened a separate account, moved some personal savings, scanned documents, looked at rental options online. Dana noticed none of it. Or maybe she noticed and interpreted it as routine. People see what fits their assumptions. One evening, she said, "You've been quiet lately." "I've been efficient," I replied. "That sounds worse. Only for chaos." She leaned her head on my shoulder. A familiar gesture, comfortable. For a second, I almost felt guilty. Then I remembered the word comfortable, and the feeling passed. 3 days later, she texted me around noon. "Thinking of inviting everyone again Friday. You okay with that?" Everyone, meaning Chloe and the tribunal. I stared at the message for a moment. Then I typed, "Sure, short, neutral, no resistance." If she thought that meant I had forgotten, she was about to learn the difference between quiet and passive. Friday evening came. Same living room, same glasses, same wine, same easy laughter. I played my role perfectly. Polite, light humor, no tension. I even poured drinks. Chloe gave me a quick nod. "You're joining us this time?" "Just passing through," I said. "I don't want to affect the ratings." She blinked, not catching it. Dana didn't react either. Good. At some point during the evening, I excused myself, went to my office, and picked up the folder. I waited a few minutes. Let the conversation settle into that relaxed rhythm again. Timing matters, even in domestic theater. Then I walked back into the living room. I stepped forward and placed the printed sheet on the coffee table, right between the wine glasses. They all looked down. Silence. Dana's eyes scanned the page. Her face changed almost instantly, color draining like someone had pulled a plug. Chloe leaned forward. Melissa froze with her glass halfway to her lips. Brianna looked like she wished she could disappear into the couch. No one spoke. I sat down calmly. "That's yours," I said to Dana. She swallowed. "Where did you—" "Your laptop," I said. "You left it on the table." Chloe shifted. "It was just—" I raised a hand slightly, not aggressively, just enough. "Don't," I said. Dana looked up at me. "It was a joke." "Yeah," I said. I noticed. The room stayed quiet. Even the refrigerator seemed to stop humming. I reached into the folder and took out the second document, placed it beside the first. Dana's eyes moved down. Her hands started to shake slightly. "What is this?" she asked, though she already knew. "Separation notice," I said calmly. Melissa whispered, "Oh my God." Dana looked at me, panic starting to rise. "You're serious?" "Yes." "This is insane. It was just a game," I finished. "I know," Chloe said. "You're overreacting." I looked at her. "No," I said. "I'm reacting for the first time." Then I turned back to Dana. "You gave me 2 out of 10 for confidence," I said. "I've improved my rating. I'm now a 10 out of 10 for confidence." No one laughed. Dana stared at the second document like it might rearrange itself into something less real. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice thin but trying to sound firm. "You're seriously doing this over a stupid conversation?" I leaned back slightly. "No, I'm doing this over what that conversation revealed. Chloe scoffed. It was wine. People say things. People say honest things, I replied, especially when they think nobody's listening. Melissa quietly set her glass down. Brianna looked like she was calculating the fastest route to the door without making it obvious. Dana shook her head. You weren't even supposed to hear that. That's comforting, I said. So the problem isn't what was said, it's that I heard it. That's not what I meant. I know, I said calmly. You meant it was private, which makes it more honest. She pressed her lips together. We were joking. You gave me numbers, I said. You added comments. You used Excel. Chloe muttered. It was a spreadsheet, not a courtroom. Dana leaned forward. Listen, we were just comparing. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough to write low presence, I said. Her eyes flicked to the page again. I didn't think you'd ever see it, I finished. Yes, that part was clear. Silence stretched again. Finally, she said softer. You're blowing this up. We have a good marriage. I nodded slowly. Comfortable, right? She flinched, just slightly, but I saw it. That's exactly what you said, I replied. Comfortable, reliable, safe option. Chloe shifted in her seat. You're twisting it. No, I said. I'm quoting it. Dana's voice rose a little. So what? You want me to say you're perfect? Nobody's perfect. I never asked for perfect, I said. Just not to be rated like a mid-range appliance. Melissa let out a small, involuntary laugh, then covered her mouth. Dana looked at her, then back at me. You're humiliating me right now. I tilted my head. Interesting choice of word. That's not fair. You're right, I said. Fair would have been not doing this in the first place. She rubbed her forehead. This is crazy. We can talk about it later. We are talking about it now. In front of everyone? I shrugged lightly. That's how it started. Chloe leaned forward. This is getting dramatic. No, I said. This is getting clear. Dana picked up the separation notice, her hand still slightly shaking. You already did this? You went to a lawyer? Yes. You didn't even talk to me first. I heard you first. That's not the same. It is when the conversation is about my value. She stared at me. You're throwing everything away. I shook my head. I'm stepping away from something that was already gone. That's not true. You gave me 2 out of 10 for confidence, I said again. I figured I'd demonstrate improvement. Brianna whispered, almost to herself. This is really bad. No one answered her. Dana's voice dropped, softer now, almost pleading. You're serious? Yes. Over a spreadsheet. Over respect. She looked at me like she was searching for some sign that I was bluffing, that this was a performance, a scare tactic, something she could diffuse with the right tone. But I wasn't angry, and that made it worse. I didn't mean it like that, she said quietly. You meant it exactly like that, I replied. You just didn't mean for me to know. Chloe stood up. Maybe we should go. Yes, Brianna said quickly. We should. Melissa nodded, already reaching for her bag. Dana didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on me. She swallowed. You're not even willing to try to fix this? I thought about that for a second. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I wanted it to be honest. You can't negotiate respect, I said. Once it's gone, you're just arguing about tone. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. Not yet. Chloe muttered something like, "This is insane," as she headed for the door. The others followed, awkward goodbyes, quiet apologies, the sound of coats and keys. Within a minute, they were gone. The house fell silent. Dana sat on the couch, still holding the papers. I stood, picked up my keys from the side table. "You're just walking out?" she said. "Yes." She stood up now, panic finally breaking through. "Wait, we can talk, please." "We already did." This isn't enough to end a marriage. For you, maybe. For you? For me, it's enough to realize I'm not where I should be. She took a step closer. I was stupid. I said stupid things. People do that. Not like that, I said gently. Not comfortably. Her shoulders dropped. You're really going to do this, she whispered. Yes. I opened the door. She said my name, quietly this time. I paused but didn't turn around. I'm sorry, she said. I don't need your apologies. I needed your respect, but unfortunately, it's not there, I said. Then I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I walked to my car, got in, and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel. My phone buzzed before I even started the engine. Dana. I let it ring. Then a message appeared. Please don't do this. Another one. We can fix it. Another. I didn't mean it. I looked at the screen for a second, then typed a reply. Rating closed. I sent it, placed the phone face down on the passenger seat, and finally turned the key. For the first time in a long while, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. A few months later, life stopped feeling like something I was temporarily borrowing. The rental apartment turned into a place I actually chose. I replaced the generic wall art with a couple of photos from trips I'd taken alone. I bought a decent coffee machine. Nothing dramatic, just small decisions that were mine and didn't require a silent committee vote. Work improved too. I spoke more directly in meetings. I said no when something didn't make sense. Strangely enough, people didn't collapse in horror. They just adjusted. One of my managers even said, "You've become more decisive lately." I didn't tell him I'd simply stopped trying to be convenient. Dana and I handled the formalities quietly. No courtroom drama, no theatrical accusations, just paperwork, schedules, signatures. Once, while we were signing the final documents, she looked at me and said, "I still can't believe how something so small changed everything." I answered, "It wasn't small." We stayed polite. Not friends, but not enemies. Occasionally she'd ask how I was doing, and I'd answer honestly but briefly. Over time, even that faded. Lives diverged the way roads do, slowly, without anyone announcing the turn. About 6 months after I moved out, I ran into Chloe at a grocery store. She froze for a second like she'd been caught shoplifting. "Hey," she said awkwardly. "Hey. I didn't expect to see you." "I shop for food," I replied. "It's a controversial lifestyle choice." She laughed nervously. "Dana told me you're doing well." "I am." She hesitated. She regrets that night. I'm sure she does. There wasn't much else to say. We exchanged polite nods and went our separate ways, both relieved. The biggest change, oddly enough, was internal. The noise of constantly trying to be the safe option disappeared. I wasn't performing stability anymore. I was just living. If someone had asked me back then whether I'd won, I wouldn't have said yes. This wasn't a victory. It was a correction. I lost a comfortable life, a shared routine, and the illusion that comfort equals respect. In return, I got something quieter. Clarity, space, self-respect, and the odd realization that being rated low in someone else's spreadsheet doesn't actually define you, unless you decide to stay in the cell. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.